Have you ever wondered how someone can care for you so deeply, yet the closer you get, the further they seem to drift away? That confusion, that heartbreak, that unbearable silence. It doesn't mean they don't love you. In fact, sometimes it means the exact opposite. Because here's the truth. Avoidants often run hardest from the person they love most. Not because the love isn't real, but because it's terrifying. Love is supposed to feel safe, right? But for the avoidant, intimacy feels like danger. It's not you. It's not your worth. It's their nervous system screaming, "This is too much, too close, too overwhelming." And unless they face those fears, they'll keep running even from the one who makes their heart feel alive. Today, I want to give you 8 powerful insights that will not only help you understand the avoidant, but also give you clarity, strength, and freedom in the process. To the avoidant, love itself can feel like a threat. Think about that for a moment. What most of us crave, the closeness, the intimacy, the warmth, can feel like suffocation to someone with an avoidant attachment style. It's not that they don't want love. In fact, deep inside, they long for it just as much as anyone else. But when it arrives, when it gets close enough to touch their heart, their body reacts as if it's danger. Why? Because love isn't just love to them. It's a trigger. It stirs up memories, wounds, and experiences they may not even be consciously aware of. Maybe they grew up in a home where love was inconsistent. Maybe they learned that getting too close meant being hurt, abandoned, or rejected. So now, when they feel genuine love, their nervous system sounds the alarm. Their mind whispers, "Don't trust this. Don't let them in. If you open the door, you'll get hurt again." That's why they pull away. Not because they don't care, but because caring feels dangerous. To you, it might seem irrational. To them, it feels like survival. And here's what makes it so complicated. The stronger the connection, the bigger the fear. When someone truly touches their soul, it awakens all the defenses they've built over a lifetime. Think about it this way. If they didn't care about you, they could stay. Indifference doesn't feel risky. But love, real, powerful love, means they finally have something to lose. That loss, even just the possibility of it, is unbearable. So instead of leaning in, they push away. Instead of risking heartbreak, they choose distance. And this is the tragedy of the avoidance story. They run not from love itself, but from the fear of pain that love represents. You could be the safest, most supportive, most patient person in the world, and still their inner alarms would scream, "Run now, before it's too late." But here's the twist. This fear doesn't mean the love isn't there. In fact, it often means the love is incredibly strong. Their actions may confuse you, but behind that distance is a heart that actually feels more than it can handle. Love feels like a threat because, for the avoidant, love has always been tied to danger. Not because of you, but because of what they've lived, what they've lost, and what they still fear. For the avoidant, vulnerability is not a natural expression of love. It feels like exposure. To you, opening up may be a bridge, a way to deepen connection. But to them, vulnerability feels like stepping onto a battlefield without armor. Every word they share, every feeling they reveal, feels like handing you a weapon that could one day be used against them. That's why they keep walls so high, why they retreat into silence, why they may seem cold when in reality they're burning with emotions they don't dare show. Imagine someone who grew up learning that when they expressed a need, it was ignored. When they showed weakness, it was judged. When they reached for comfort, it wasn't there. Over time, they adapted. They built the belief that safety means self-reliance and protection means keeping their true feelings hidden. That's how the avoidant survives. So when love enters their life, when someone comes close enough to see through their armor, it feels threatening. It's not that they don't want to be seen. It's that being seen feels unsafe. This is why they often struggle to share their heart. To you, asking them how they feel may seem like a simple question. To them, it's like asking them to leap without a parachute. Because what if they say the wrong thing? What if you use their honesty to control them, abandon them, or prove they're not enough? That fear isn't about you. It's about the story they've carried for years. Vulnerability feels dangerous because it means surrendering control, and for someone who survived by staying in control, that's the ultimate risk. Even when they do love deeply, they may hide it. They'll pull back when emotions rise too high. They'll change the subject when the conversation gets too intimate. They'll shut down when you need closeness the most. It's not rejection, it's fear. They believe that if they let you in completely, you'll see their flaws, their insecurities, their raw truth, and decide to walk away. So they run first. They protect themselves by pretending they don't need you, even when the truth is they've never needed someone more. This is the painful paradox of the avoidant. Vulnerability is the very thing that could heal them, the very thing that could bring them closer to love, yet it feels like the one thing they must avoid. When love runs deep, it doesn't just bring warmth for the avoidant, it awakens fear that feels almost unbearable. The stronger the bond, the higher the stakes. Suddenly, they have something they cannot imagine losing, and that thought alone shakes their foundation. To someone else, deep love feels like safety, like a homecoming. But for the avoidant, deep love feels like walking on a cliff's edge, beautiful, breathtaking, but one wrong step could mean a devastating fall. That fear is so consuming that rather than risking the pain of loss, they retreat before the bond grows too powerful. The irony is heartbreaking. The closer you get, the more likely they are to pull away. If you mean little to them, they may stay calm, relaxed, unaffected. But the moment you mean everything, their instincts scream at them to create distance. Because in their mind, the greater the love, the greater the potential heartbreak. Loving deeply means being vulnerable. It means handing you a piece of their soul and trusting you not to break it. For them, that trust feels too fragile, too uncertain. And so, instead of embracing the closeness, they armor up, protecting themselves from a pain that hasn't even happened yet, but already feels inevitable. This is why their actions seem contradictory. You feel their connection. You see glimpses of their affection, their passion, their tenderness. Suddenly, they vanish, withdraw, or become cold. You wonder, how can someone who loves me act like I don't exist? The truth is, they're overwhelmed. The depth of their feelings terrifies them because it means you matter more than anyone ever has, and with that comes the terrifying thought, if I lose this, I'll be destroyed. So they try to control the outcome by retreating first. If they leave, they can't be left. If they pull back, they can't be abandoned. It's a defense mechanism, a way of lessening a pain they've convinced themselves is unavoidable. Yet what they don't realize is that by running from the risk of heartbreak, they end up creating the very emptiness they fear. They push away the one person who was willing to stand close, the one who actually cared enough to stay. Deep love awakens deep fear because, for the avoidant, it means exposure. It means admitting they care so much that they cannot imagine life without you. And sometimes that truth is simply too much for them to handle. For the avoidant, independence is their lifeline. It's what makes them feel safe, strong, and in control. They've built their entire identity around not needing anyone, around being self-sufficient, around never relying too heavily on another person. On the surface, that independence looks admirable. It looks like strength. It looks like freedom. But the reality is different. What feels like freedom is often a carefully constructed prison, one with invisible walls that keep them from fully experiencing the very thing they secretly long for, connection. They believe that closeness will strip away their autonomy, that letting someone in too deeply will mean losing themselves. So they cling to independence as if it's survival itself. And yes, independence can be beautiful when it's balanced, but for the avoidant, it becomes extreme. It becomes isolation disguised as strength. They tell themselves, I don't need anyone, I'm fine on my own. But inside, a quiet ache grows. They crave love, intimacy, partnership, but at the same time, they're terrified that if they let themselves have it, they'll no longer be in control. This is why relationships with avoidants feel like a push and pull. One moment, they're drawn to the closeness. They feel the warmth, the connection, the joy of being loved. The next moment, they recoil, convinced they're about to lose themselves. That retreat isn't about you, it's about their fear of dependence. To them, leaning on someone else feels like weakness, like a trap they'll never escape. So they run, convincing themselves that solitude is strength, not realizing that their prison bars are made of their own fears. The tragedy is that their independence often costs them the one thing they desire most. They want to be loved but resist the very closeness love requires. They want connection but guard themselves against intimacy. They want safety but confuse distance with security. And over time, This constant push for independence becomes loneliness. They end up standing behind walls so thick that even those who love them most can't reach through. What they don't see is that true independence doesn't mean shutting people out. Real strength isn't found in running from love. It's found in standing in it, knowing that you can keep your identity and still allow someone to walk beside you. Yet for the avoidant, this lesson is one of the hardest to learn because in their world, independence feels like protection, even when it's actually the cage that keeps them from the freedom of love. When an avoidant goes silent, it's rarely just about the moment. That silence is a survival tool, one they've been sharpening for years. Instead of speaking out their fears, instead of expressing what they need, they retreat into the safety of quiet. To them, silence is not absence, it's control. It gives them space to regulate overwhelming emotions, to stop themselves from feeling too exposed, to avoid saying something that might make them vulnerable. You might interpret that silence as rejection, as proof that they don't care. But more often than not, it's the only way they know how to protect themselves when intimacy feels like too much. Think about it. Words require openness. They demand honesty, a willingness to share feelings, fears, and desires. For someone whose entire defense system is built on staying guarded, words can feel like weapons that might betray them. So instead of risking vulnerability, they choose withdrawal. Silence becomes their language, an unspoken way of saying, I can't handle this closeness right now. I need space to feel safe again. This is why their silence can be so confusing. One day they're engaged, affectionate, and present. The next, they retreat into distance, offering no explanation. You're left wondering what you did wrong, when in reality, their silence isn't about you at all. It's about them trying to manage emotions that feel too heavy. They may not even have the vocabulary to explain what's happening inside them. So instead of words, they give you distance. For example, during conflict, you might crave resolution, a heartfelt conversation, a chance to connect. But for the avoidant, conflict equals danger. Talking it out means exposure, so they shut down. Or when things are going well and the bond feels intense, instead of leaning into it, they go quiet because the closeness itself stirs their fear of losing control. In those moments, silence is their attempt to restore balance, to hold on to a sense of safety. The mistake many people make is trying to force words out of them, pressuring, chasing, demanding. Those things only deepen their withdrawal, because it confirms their fear that intimacy means being cornered. What breaks through isn't pressure but presence. It's showing that silence doesn't scare you, that you don't crumble when they retreat. Over time, that steadiness creates safety. Safety is what eventually allows them to replace silence with words. Their silence, then, is not a reflection of how little they feel. It's a reflection of how much they're overwhelmed by what they feel. For them, withdrawal is survival. Even if it looks like rejection from the outside, inside the avoidant, there's a constant war raging between two forces, the longing to love and the fear of what love could cost. On one side, their heart craves closeness, connection, the deep comfort of knowing someone sees them fully and chooses them anyway. On the other, their fears rise up, screaming that closeness means risk, vulnerability, and inevitable pain. This tug of war isn't visible on the surface. To outsiders, the avoidant may seem calm, collected, even indifferent. But behind that mask, there's a storm few people ever get to witness. This is why their behavior can be so contradictory. One moment they lean in, affectionate, tender, fully present. The next, they vanish, leaving you questioning whether the connection was ever real. What you're experiencing isn't a lack of love. It's the battle inside them. Their heart is saying, this feels right, this feels safe, stay here. But their fear is warning, don't get too close. If you do, you'll lose everything. And when fear and love collide, fear often wins. Imagine what it must feel like to want love so deeply but to feel paralyzed the moment it arrives. That's the avoidance reality. They may see your love as a gift, yet simultaneously experience it as a threat. They want to trust, yet trust feels impossible. They want to hold on, yet holding on feels like giving up control. So they live in a cycle, running toward love just enough to feel it, then pulling away before it consumes them. This inner war also explains their mixed signals. They're not trying to play games, though it often feels that way. They're torn. Part of them is desperate to stay, while another part insists on fleeing. They wrestle with thoughts like, if I let them in, will they abandon me? If I depend on them, will I lose myself? If I show them who I really am, will they still want me? These questions haunt them, and because of that, they waver between closeness and distance, between presence and silence. For those who love an avoidant, it's easy to mistake that retreat as indifference. But if you could step inside their heart, you'd see it's not emptiness, it's conflict. They're not pushing away because they don't care. They're pushing away because they care more than they know how to handle. Love feels like both a blessing and a threat, and until they resolve that war inside themselves, they'll keep running even from what they want most. Healing is possible, but for the avoidant it begins with one of the hardest steps they could ever take, admitting that their patterns are not strength, but protection. For so long they've survived by keeping walls up, by convincing themselves that needing no one is power. They've mistaken isolation for independence and withdrawal for safety. But the truth is, those patterns are not serving them anymore. They've kept love at arm's length, not because they didn't want it, but because they were afraid of it. And healing starts the moment they realize fear doesn't have to be their master forever. What makes healing difficult for the avoidant is that it feels like betrayal of everything they've built their life around. Vulnerability feels foreign. Asking for support feels impossible. Trusting someone feels dangerous, but growth always begins at the edge of discomfort. It's in the very moments when they resist closeness that they need to practice leaning in, even if only by an inch. Healing isn't about tearing down every wall at once. It's about slowly, brick by brick, learning that the world won't collapse if they let someone see their true self. It's also important to understand that healing doesn't erase fear overnight. Fear may always whisper in the background, but the difference is whether they choose to let it run their life. When an avoidant commits to growth, they begin to replace old reflexes with new choices. Instead of running when intimacy feels overwhelming, they pause. Instead of shutting down in silence, they try to share even a few words. Instead of pretending they don't care, they admit, maybe quietly at first, that they do. Each step is small, but each one matters. Support makes this journey possible. A safe partner, a therapist, or even a trusted friend can provide the stability the avoidant never knew growing up. With consistency, patience, and compassion, they begin to learn that love doesn't always end in loss, that closeness doesn't have to mean abandonment, that vulnerability can actually bring freedom instead of pain. Over time, the defenses they once believed were unshakable start to soften. Healing doesn't mean they'll never feel the urge to run again. It means they'll recognize that urge for what it is, fear, and choose not to let it control them. They'll begin to see that the love they've been pushing away is the very thing that can set them free. And when that realization takes root, the avoidant discovers something extraordinary, that they are capable of giving and receiving love fully, without fear being the driver of every decision. At the heart of it all, the reason avoidants run from the ones they love most is not because they lack love, but because they feel it too deeply. Love awakens everything inside them, the joy, the longing, but also the fear. It presses against old wounds they've carried for years, wounds that whisper, don't get too close, don't trust, don't risk. And so they retreat, not because you're unworthy, but because they are terrified of how much you mean. That paradox of wanting love yet fearing it creates the very cycles that leave both partners confused, hurt, and searching for answers. But when we see the truth clearly, when we understand the battle they're fighting, we can separate their fear from our value. We stop taking their withdrawal as proof that we are not enough, and instead recognize it as a reflection of their inner struggle. What's crucial to remember is that love with an avoidant is not a hopeless cause, but it cannot be a one-sided chase. Healing, growth, and transformation are possible, but they require courage from both sides. For the avoidant, it's the courage to step into vulnerability, to test the waters of closeness, and to trust that not every bond will lead to loss. For the one who loves them, it's the courage to stand firm, to honor your own worth, and not let fear dictate how you love yourself. Because the moment you shrink, beg, or chase, you reinforce their fear that love is a trap. But when you stand in your strength, you show them a new reality. That connection can exist without suffocation, that love can be powerful without being dangerous. The journey for avoidants is not about destroying their independence, but about learning that independence and intimacy can coexist. True freedom isn't found in running away, it's found in standing still with an open heart. The walls they've built were never meant to last forever. They were survival tools for a past that no longer controls them. And when those walls come down, even just a little, what's revealed is someone who is capable of deep, loyal, passionate love. That is the truth many avoidants don't realize until they finally stop running, that love doesn't have to mean losing themselves. Love can mean finding a stronger, fuller version of who they already are. For those who are listening and find themselves loving an avoidant, hear this: your power is not in fixing them. Your power is not in waiting endlessly for them to change. Your power is in standing so fully in your own light that their fear cannot pull you into the shadows. You can love them, yes. You can show compassion, yes, but never at the cost of your own soul. The greatest gift you can give an avoidant is not chasing after their retreat, but showing them by your strength and your steadiness that real love does not suffocate, it liberates. And whether they rise to meet that love is their choice, not your responsibility. So as we close, remember this truth: if an avoidant runs from you, it does not mean you were unlovable. It may actually mean you were loved more deeply than they could handle. But your destiny is not to live in the waiting room of someone else's healing. Your destiny is to live fully, to love boldly, to keep your heart open even when others close theirs. Because the moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop tying your worth to their fear, you reclaim your power. And when you reclaim your power, you step into a life where love is no longer something you fear losing. It's something you embody every single day. Thank you so much for watching and spending this time with me today. If this message spoke to your heart, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe so you never miss the next powerful message. Remember, healing, growth, and love start with you. Stay strong, stay true, and always rise above fear. Until next time, take care of your heart, take care of your mind, and never forget, you are more powerful than you know. Goodbye for now, and I'll see you in the next video.